Hello, everyone. GoldenHawk here, creator of Ancient Powers and High Priestess for the House of Life. I posted a day on your new life is going to cost you your old one. And I know as you join me or come in later on other days, whatever, I'd like you to sit with that for just a moment. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. For a very long time, moving into the actual activations for ancient powers, moving from the classes that I've had and moving into actually becoming activated. I have a little litany that goes beginning of it, and it is about choosing, because this is definitely taking a step into power, real power. And when we do that, we're not always very well liked. And I'm been working with Kat here, and I don't know if she's gonna pop in and say hello, but say hi.
Oh, hello.
Come on.
Hello. I'm also known as Kata.
Kata, yes. Hi. I've been working with Kat, and we've been going over over 20 years of classes. And she got her activation in, what did we figure now? 2006? Yeah. And I was looking at the changes that the course itself has gone through over the years, because it does go through changes. And quite likely, I will have a group that'll come together, and I'll go, oh, wow, channel pling, and something new has to be added into the energy grid just because one or two specific people are in there. And then I found out some of these things I'm going to have to do for left-handed people and right-handed people, because I'm not going to be there to do the adjustments myself personally every time. So that's different. But I looked at the courses, and I went back to my stick person figure because I found that. And I'm like, Kat, don't you have that one? She's like, oh no, it was a couple years before. But I was teaching in the same place, so it had brought that up. And we have together, as well as singularly, been through some huge changes over those years that we had to make really, really big choices in. And while we were working with this, and Saturn was stationing and going, oh, I think I'll move forward and see how people want to resonate, the phone calls started coming in, and people started showing up, and messages started coming, and we didn't perhaps get as far forward in some ways as we would have wanted to. But we did healings because people decided that they wanted a new life. And they threw the old one out and didn't go the traditional way the first time and went in this direction. And I really hope that that turns out with the absolute best possible. But it's been a really intense week, and the weekend brought it into more intensity. And now I become super aware of the fires. And the new life is costing the old. And during this time, even though this is possibly going to be, months after these fires are done and over with, you pop in here, you're watching this, do a little centering and grounding, And draw deep. Take a nice breath and open your heart up for the earth, for the trees, for the air, and for the firemen and their families. Because we've got 3 states on fire, the entire West Coast, and it's been really bad. And give it that minute. That moment for change, that moment for a new life. Looking back through all of this, I see just point after point, and going over it, received a call from someone who they weren't too in control of what was going on and got angry and decided to separate themselves. And we can see how life goes on from that point for them, because they chose not to change, to stay in fear, anger, jealousy, illness, codependency from whatever angle or end it was. And then another one contacted and said, I don't feel well. I want to feel well. And a huge outpouring, a huge healing, facilitation for that healing, right when we were probably right at the big 40 hertz band. Super huge amounts of energy streaming through. And actually received a phone call later and big thank yous. And watch the ripple effect for how that happened to affect the family ongoing, because it will. These changes change not only our life, bring not only us a new life, the one who chooses, but the ones around them. Oh, you create your own reality. But really, we co-create realities. And it's all about those connections. And we have a multitude of connections of the mind and a multitude of connections with the heart and with the body. And as much as the mind has memory, be surprised, the body's memory is greater. And the body remembers from before birth. The body remembers your ancestry. The body remembers what happened in a whole line of your DNA. And in order to really take a new life, to create a new life, we have to process body memory, cellular memory, DNA memory. And as we do this, as we work with this processing, whole chains of people have decisions to make, because the changes move through their DNA also. As we release those who are interconnected with us cellularly, end up with, it's like, oh, where's your goat roped? You let go of the rope. And they have it. It's like the ball's in their court. So interconnected. And these people make their own choices. We can, perhaps, to a certain extent, influence these decisions, but they are also carrying the rest of their body memory and their ancestral memory. It's not in their heads. That's why so often people's actions and words do not align. They do not walk their talk. And if you look at it, sometimes neither do you. I know sometimes I don't either. And I'm constantly monitoring myself. And sometimes I'm like, I don't even care. And I'm at a pretty high level of knowledge, at least. The body has to be healed. The body and the mind, along with the spirit. And then our communication levels must also be healed. The way we speak about ourselves and to one another. But at this time, with fires raging and Saturn moving forward and all of these different pieces shifting and rocking us, and these intense gamma frequencies coming up from the earth, and a lot of old stuff is being kicked up for a lot of people. We need to look at how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about decisions we've made in the past, what we base our decisions on. And how our body feels about it, along with our heart feelings. I'm not speaking of emotions yet, but I'm going to. And then where our mind sits with it. In order to understand our mindset, I mean, I got up today and opened up my Facebook page and went, oh, there's somebody else who hates me. And they were angry that they were forced into the group, and I don't have any idea who this guy was. I don't know where he came from. And he's suggesting an exercise program for enlightenment. And I have two exes that were I love you too. I have two exes that were martial arts masters, beyond black belts or beyond one black belt. Anyway, I'm very glad, Miranda. And it's awesome to be able to move ki like that, or chi energy, or depending on which discipline you're in, what it's called. And it's great to have this balance and this ferocity and this grace. And you can get it through yoga, and you can get it actually through toning and through the disciplines here too. But virulent hatred for no reason. And I just went, whatever, gone, ciao. But do we have spaces inside us where we are that way about ourselves? That's the difference. That's the old life that it's going to cost. And somebody might lose someone that they think is their twin soul, or husband or girlfriend or boyfriend or wife, whatever, no longer be getting along with their mother or father. But you'd be surprised. Some some of the big Christian Baptist ministers, parents have actually opened up to their kids and said, well, it's not a bad path, and you're following your own heart. So, but where are we with ourselves? Where are we truly with ourselves? That we would come to face this in the outside world. There has to be a peace inside ourselves, or that is turned against us by us. And one of the gals that we worked with today, I reached in energetically and felt the lines inside her. And she was so full of love, and she was so strong until I got to the core of where the problem was at. And she loathed herself. She was so angry for herself because she had done exactly what she had been taught and raised to do in raising her children, taking care of her children and her family. And she had taken on the guilt. She'd sentenced herself for something that her only crime was not stepping outside of her training, her hypnotization from generations, and making a change earlier than she did. Because this woman did not absolutely just not act. It took her time to build up an idea inside herself that she had the right to act, let alone a responsibility to act. And there's a piece with women and younger sons, actually, that is given to us just actually with the way sentences are constructed as to what rights we do have and we do not have. Flashing pieces that were from before we were speaking, before we understood what words meant in this language, where we were absolutely impressed. And then the genetic pieces. And this woman had come forward, and she was not late for her times. She came forward with the movement of her times and supported this, and has been there and has been as strong as she could possibly be for generations of her family. Central core. And if something happens to this woman at this point, I know her family would fall apart. And she detests and hates herself for the lack of change, the lack of action, for the years that she was not able to act because of a constriction, because of a constriction from her childhood that came from her grandmothers and her grandmother's grandmother and her grandmother's grandmother and her grandmother's grandmother. And I want to tell you now, right now at this point, we are in a constant state of change. That not just the future changes, not just the now changes, but the past that we are drawing from is also in change and in flux. And I'm not a scientist who has the vocabulary to explain something this deep and entangled to you. I understand it. I've studied it, but I don't have a way to actually explain the way that time shifts through energy, through weave, through wave, through high point, low point, chemicals, sound, etc. But we're pulling from so many different things. And at any moment, you can change the now. And in changing your now and doing the work where you can take responsibility, that have the ability to respond to what you've been involved with, what you have done or not done, and understand that you are moving this energy for at least 10 generations behind you, that 10 beside you, people you may not have any idea exist, but are connected to you through DNA, through sound, through belief, through frequency. As you change the wave all around you. And you have this opportunity now and now. And you think about it and remember for a moment, maybe you changed it then and you're continuing to change it now. And you can go forward, but you will lose your old life, period. How it will affect, who it will affect, that is their free will. How you will feel about it and whether your emotional reaction lines up with that or not, that's an unknown until you experience it, until you're monitoring it, and you're dealing with your strength and your weaknesses inside the change. To open up, to embrace self during this change, and to bless the old life as it leaves. And let me tell you, almost everyone who moves through the activations, the warning usually, expect your past to rise up within the first possibly 3 minutes. I've had it happen, like phone calls and texts walking out of the room, but usually not more than 3 days. And a great big huge piece rises back up and you're tested whether you mean it, whether you mean what you've set, if you're willing for the change to continue to take place and to anchor, and are you willing to go deeper? If you're strong enough. And inside this, always the key factor is if you're willing to love and respect yourself. And at this point, when you're looking back at the mother or the father or the aunt or the uncle or the grandparents, the great grandparents, where you see the chain of abuse coming in, or the bad decisions, the addictions, you've got to be ready and willing to not hold blame against the person in that position. To give release, to give unconditional love, and to understand that it came from further back. Because the fear, the disconnect, the hatred, let me tell you, fear of darkness, I think we're going to do that one next. Because the depths of ourselves, the darkness, the magnetic, what's automatically detested because it's feminine, and how much we still actually come from that, and how much affects us, male or female. And I miss Glenn on this one because I like having that balance. But I am going to tell you that the courses are going through some changes, which is great because they got to be spiffed up. And besides, it's like I don't have to do stick people anymore. But laughing at me. I don't have to do stick people anymore. Bonnie probably got one of those. Bonnie Snyder. Yeah, she probably got stick people. But
It's kind of cute to stick people. So.
Yeah, sons with smiley faces and arms. But it's like, give me a PM and I can speak with you a little bit and let you know where you're at with this, and I can get you the same results I do my other students and clients if you choose a new life and if you're ready to release the old. Paying attention. That's the most valuable thing that you can give is your attention. Past? Mm, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to watch it fly. Never caught.